about it than me.
I just think if somebody destroyed or did something to our county property, we wouldn't let it drag on a year.
We'll bring it up. Okay. We will call the meeting to order. We do have our county administrator online, David Binke. And I know there's some other folks that are called in, but at any point, we will call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public forum. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak at public forum? Anybody? We don't force you. If not, we'll move on to the agenda. We do have a couple of additions.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to add those?
Yeah.
If we could add regular agenda item 5A, a resolution designating Med Surety and Matrix Trust as health reimbursement arrangement trustees. And this is related to our VIBA and flexible spending accounts that we need to transfer. And then if we could add for additional information, the lateral transfer of Jacqueline Ness from Clerk 3 in the Auditor's Office to Clerk 3 in the Assessor's Office.
Okay, any other additions, corrections?
I'll move as amended.
Second.
We got a motion by Ludwig, seconded by Lovegren to adopt the agenda as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public forum. Oh, wait a minute here. We're looking for the minutes, approval of the minutes of June 7th County Board meeting and summary for publications, and approval of minutes of June 13th Board of Appeals and Equalization meeting.
I'll make a motion for both of those.
I'll second.
Motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore to approve those minutes. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have no other reports or correspondence, which brings us to the consent agenda. Quite lengthy. We've had it in front of us for several days.
Ludwig will move.
I'll second it.
A motion by Ludwig, seconded by Lovegren, approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moves us up to the Personnel Committee report. Who's gonna take that?
Want me to do it or?
Go ahead.
Okay. We did meet June 13th and the following recommendations. Health and Human Services acknowledged the resignation of social worker Nicholas Loudon effective May 25th, 2022, and approved backfill of the position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. In the Sheriff's Office acknowledged the resignation of part-time probationary dispatcher Colton Brown effective May 18th, 2022, and approved backfill of the position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. Acknowledge the resignation of full-time corrections officer Andrew Degestrom Hanley effective June 18th, 2022, and approve the backfill of the position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. In treasurer, modify the current appraiser job description to reflect the current supervisor as county assessor and to update the licensing and continuing education requirements with no change to the grade. Under probation, acknowledge the resignation of probation case aide Justine Ward effective June 13, 2022, and approve backfill the position. Any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. Under public works, acknowledge the resignation of highway maintenance worker Adam Johnson effective May 12, 2022. Approve backfill the position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. With that, I will make a recommendation for all of them.
I'll second.
Motion by Moore, second by Ludwig to approve the business of the Personnel Committee. Any discussion, questions? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And introduction of the 4-H educator and SNAP educator. Sarah Odendahl. Welcome, Sarah.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having me. I'm Sarah Odendahl. I am your new Pine County 4-H educator. I am a Pine City resident by birth. I was born and raised in Pine City. I've spent the last 3.5 years actually at Scott County 4-H and back in Pine County now, made that lateral transfer. So I bring a couple of years of experience with 4-H programs, but I'm very glad to be back in the area. And we're looking forward to a really great summer. Hope we'll have an opportunity to see everyone at some of our events this summer. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So it is the fair project stuff advancing?
Yes, we are proceeding on schedule right now. It does take me a little extra time since I'm getting up to date on everything that's just slightly different. Every county does some things slightly differently, but we're ready to have a really great summer and we've got things really well on track. So we've got about 2 more weeks yet for our fair registrations to come in, and then we get to really start preparing for things.
Are our kids' numbers kind of hanging in there?
We're very close to last year's enrollment numbers right now. I don't have the copies of the numbers on hand, but looking at very similar numbers to last year as far as enrollment goes. We're hoping that we'll have a few more projects than we had last year, just because last year was a little bit more of a scramble with the pandemic concerns and those kinds of things. And we've had a little bit more time to really prepare going into this summer. So we're hoping to see more projects and really interesting projects. We're getting things warmed up for the food stand to open and all those kinds of things. So you'll see 4-H out in full force this summer, and we're really looking forward to it.
Thanks. Anybody?
Welcome aboard.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks.
welcome home.
Yeah, no kidding. Christy Riley.
Yes. Hi, I'm Kristen Riley, and I just started on May 10th as the new SNAP Ed educator for Pine County. So yeah, a little bit about my background. I'm a registered dietitian, and then I also have a master's in public health nutrition from the University of Minnesota. And one of my first jobs was a nutrition specialist for Wright County Community Action Head Start for 5 years. And then I did a year temporary position with Minnesota Department of Education as a school nutrition program reviewer. That was a really interesting one. I really am appreciative that I got the opportunity to do that. And then I worked 3 years as a nutrition coordinator for Mojave Atwa Head Start as their nutrition coordinator. So now I'm here and I'm very happy to be a part of the U of M Extension team now. So yeah, and I'm really looking forward to actually getting into schools and working with the kids about healthy eating and promoting fruit and veggie intake. That's something I'm very passionate about, especially since that young age is such a prime time to get them started on, a good path of a habit of fruit and veggie intake and just giving them those positive messages about fruits and veggies. So I'm really looking forward to working with Head Starts, WIC, schools, also farmers markets, just getting in there. And that's kind of my first focus. So yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We need to schedule a special meeting for the educational collaborative We're looking at July 27th at 6 at Pine Tech. Is that right, David?
That's correct. And the topic is going to be industrial and trades education. And this is the meeting where the 4 school districts in the county are invited to.
I'll make a motion to schedule it.
I'll second.
Motion by Moore, second by, was that Ludwig? To schedule that meeting on the 27th of July. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mndot Area Transportation Partnership.
Well, we have some friends from Mndot and our ATP here. They're going to give you some information on federal funding projects. Kristen Foster is our district state engineer, and she can answer any questions that you have on just about anything, I think.
All right.
Go ahead, Brian.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Brian Anderson. I'm the planning director for Mndot out of our Duluth office. So we oversee the the 8 northeast counties of Minnesota here. And I just wanted to provide a little bit of an overview of our area transportation partnership and also some of the projects that we have coming up this construction season and then for the next 4 construction seasons as well, just so that you have them on your radar and so forth. Did everybody receive the information in your packet? Excellent, great. I'm going to start with the handout called the Northeast Minnesota Area Transportation Partnership. And this is a partnership throughout the entire state of Minnesota. We have our area transportation partnership set up to help advise Mndot on making decisions as far as what projects coming up in our program. And we also have these area transportation partnerships set up to help handle the federal aid that comes to cities and counties. For our area, it's Northeast Minnesota Area Transportation Partnership. And there are some statistics on our district and so forth on the first page. But realistically, the main purpose of the area transportation partnerships, ATPs, is just to handle that $10 million that we receive a year in our district for local projects. And I'll walk through how we do that here in just a second. The second page is just a brief overview of our membership of our area transportation partnership. And from Pine County, we have Commissioner Hallen and also Mark LeBrun sits on our ATP as well. And we have really good multimodal representation. You can kind of see the list there of individuals who sit on our board, helping us make decisions related to transportation. The third page is a brief overview of our state transportation improvement plan. And this plan is our 4-year plan, which I'll talk about here in just a little bit. But this plan is really our commitment to the public. So once a project gets into this 4-year plan, it's our commitment to delivering that project. Whereas we also have our 10-year plan, which we refer to as our Capital Highway Investment Plan, our CHIP. And that program is a little bit more fluid because years 5 through 10 are not nailed in stone. We don't know what our budgets are going to be. We don't exactly know what our pavement or bridge conditions are going to be like in those years. So we tentatively program projects in those years, but those dates fluctuate based on our budget and how our conditions deteriorate over time. The next page, page 4, I'm not really going to talk about it too much. It's just about how different funding sources come in Mndot. But the 5th page I want to spend just a minute on, and that is our ATP process. So we do solicit for federal aid projects in the fall. In September, we usually start with our Transportation Alternative Program, which Paige with ARDC will talk to you a little bit more about here in a few minutes. But then in November, we do a full solicitation for our local projects for roads and bridges. Those applications are typically due back in January. We review them with our board and make our decisions in April. And then we come out in June, May and June to county boards and just kind of present that information to you. The last page is a brief overview of the funding. So the left-hand columns are Mndot funding and the right-hand columns are local funding. So I'll start with the Mndot funding first of all. The total at the bottom is $59.4 million for 26. So we're adding our fourth year of our program right now. So that's 2026. We already have identified projects for 22 or 23, 24, and 25. So now we're adding this fourth year. And this number is substantially less than what we're normally used to. We're usually around 70 to $100 million for projects in our district. A couple of reasons for this. One of them is that over time, the money does chase the bad pavements and bridge conditions around the state. We like to keep our statewide performance at a certain level. And right now, our district is sitting fairly well when it comes to roads and bridges as far as our good condition. Whereas other parts of the state need a little bit more help to bring their performance up. Looking out into the future and to our CHIP targets, we are looking at this number going up. And then it's going to go up really fast towards the last years of the CHIP as our pavements start to deteriorate. Right now, as a department, we have probably the best pavement conditions that we've had in our history as a department. So that's one thing that we want to continue moving forward, but that all depends on what our revenue projections, if they hold true or not into the future. So then on the right-hand side, a little bit about the local program, and that's $10 million of federal aid that comes to our district. And our air transportation partnership oversees this money. How it's broken out, that $10 million is we spend about $900,000 of it on trails for our transportation alternatives program, trail type projects. Then we also spend about $1.7 million on safety type projects. And then we have $4.4 million available for cities and counties outside of the Duluth area, and about $2.9 million available in the Duluth area. It's all broken out by formula and population as well through a formula that we've set up as our board has put together. So that's a little bit of an overview of the money. In 2026, how our ATP structures is that we typically have 3 projects a year for counties and cities of about $1.5 million apiece. And this year, it was not Pine County's turn. We typically go around to different counties and distribute the money based on our formula. It was Aiken, St. Louis, and Lake's turn this year. We don't want to make these federal projects so small that it doesn't make sense. So we do take turns over this the course of the cycle of years. So it's a little bit of an overview of the funding. Is there any questions so far before I dive into some of our projects? All right, so 2022 is our construction program handout. It's the next one I'm going to cover. And in 2022, we don't have a lot of work going on in Pine County this summer. We will have some maintenance projects and so forth. But as far as construction projects, the only one that we're wrapping up is on 123 here in Sandstone. And it'll just be some additional work associated with that project. And then that is the only project on the handout. There is some work on I-35 in the Barnum area if you're traveling north to Duluth. About 10 miles of interstate will be reconstructed on the northbound lane. And then I'll get into our 23 through 26 program here, which has a lot more work in Pine County associated with it. And that's the big map type handout here. And in 2023, it's a little misleading when you look at I-35 and the fact that it's all colored. But there is some clear zone maintenance projects and there's some striping as well associated with that. So we are not touching the entire interstate with any type of reconstruction, but it does look like that when you look at the map. But the first project on the map there is clear zone maintenance on 23, and that's just getting in and clearing out the clear zone. We will have a bridge also on Trunk Highway 70 in conjunction with WSDOT, repairing the bridge on the St. Croix River. So that will be in 2023. And then the very large project, which I'm sure you're all fairly familiar with, is more or less the reconstruction of I-35 through the Hinckley area for about 3 miles there, and the replacement of 4 bridges. That'll be a 2-year project. And this is a very expensive project for our district. It's about $25 million. So we will be paying for that over several fiscal years because we cannot afford it all in 1 year. So it'll be split between 24 and 25. And then in 24, we also have a resurfacing project on Trunk Highway 23 from Sandstone to Ascoff. Also be some intersection lighting associated with that project. It's about a $4.3 million project. And then out in 2026, we do have the realignment. The last project there is the realignment of Trunk Highway 23 and 107. And that will be in conjunction with our District 3 office. It's about a $1 million project. It's a safety project at that intersection. So those are the projects that we have coming up in 23 through 26. And next year, what I plan to do when I come to the board, if you have me, I'll also be sharing our 10-year program. We'll have that all mapped out so you can kind of take a look at, see what's coming up in the later years of the program as well. So is there any questions that I can answer?
On your projects in 2024 for Hinckley, how are you planning on doing that? You said you're going to be doing 4 bridges. Is that when you do Hinckley, how many bridges did you say you're going to be?
There'll be 4 bridges replaced over the grindstone and over the railroad. And then the concrete, so about 3 miles of the concrete will be replaced as well. I think it's about 2 minutes right now, but.
Okay. And this is the Highway 48 bridge too, isn't it?
No, it is not.
It's not a bridge. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Be the bridge. But associated with 48, we also received some funding to look at that corridor through the Hinckley area. So we will be doing a corridor study this fall, winter timeframe to see what type of improvements we can make on 43 to alleviate congestion, especially in the summer months.
Well, we are working on a project from Highway 23 where it would go over and then that would take some of that tension off of Highway 48.
Sure.
Is that something that we can work with you on so that we can work together as a team?
We'll
Perfect.
be working together on that and also with the Mille Lacs Band as well.
Yes,
Right.
perfect. Perfect.
We think that would be a great improvement for Pine County, but I know they're huge projects. I was just in Duluth and I look at all of that and I'm going, oh my God, you got miles and miles of bridges and turn lanes and oh my goodness, who keeps track of all that? And what's the cost? I mean, it's gotta be hundreds of millions.
It is, yep. Just for the Hinckley projects right now, their modeling shows either an 11-mile backup or a 20-mile backup. So it's not going to be fun, but they're working on some alternatives as far as where to route traffic. So you'll probably be hearing more about that next year.
It's pretty crazy there on a normal day.
It does. Well, thank you for having me. I'm going to turn it over to Kristen Foster, the state aid engineer. She's going to say a few words.
Morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. As Mark mentioned, I'm here to serve you. I am the district state aid engineer for our region. You might remember John McDonald used to visit you in the past for these meetings. Prior to coming back to Mndot a couple of years ago, I had the privilege of working for Lake County for about 7 years. So I'm happy to bring a little bit of local perspective to the position of helping Mark and Aaron and your highway department team in Pine County. I don't have too much to say today. When you work with a good team, it makes it easy to give good reports at these board meetings. What I will do is leave a few cards on the podium here. So should you need to get in touch with me at any time, or if you get a local funding question from one of your constituents, I'm happy to help. As Brian mentioned, he went over more of the Mndot projects, and what I typically focus on is supporting Mark and Aaron and your team here in the delivery of the local projects, be it local road improvement program. You have some federal funding coming up in the 2024-2025 rate range for one of your highways. And preliminarily, it looks like we would expect Pine County would be the recipient or the beneficiary of our ATP's federal funding program, probably in the 2027 or 2028 time range again. So that's good news on your horizon. More work and more outside funds coming to your county. Are there any questions about local program or local funding options for me today?
No, but I appreciate, I've been on that ATP thing for quite a while and I appreciate the opportunity to ask questions once in a while there. So, and your district office has been always very, very responsive to any questions we've had. And, I know Mark is thought of well in that area, so we try not to throw him under the bus, so.
Thanks, Commissioner Helen, and we appreciate your participation and time commitment as well. Before I turn it over to ARDC, I would like to introduce Pippi Mayfield. For those of you who are on Mndot's email lists, if you get our notices from time to time, you'll recognize her as the Public Engagement and Communications Director. And sometimes it's just nice to associate a face with the name if there are questions that Brian or I can't answer. Next up, I'll introduce Paige with ARDC to talk a little bit more about the Area Transportation Partnership. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. As Brian and Kristen mentioned, my name is Paige Melius. I'm a senior planner with ARDC. We have the pleasure of serving your county through your participation in the Area Transportation Partnership. Today, I just want to give you an overview of the Transportation Alternatives Program project recommendations that were recommended for funding this year, 2022, for fiscal year 2026. So those two projects were the Campus Connector Segment 5 that was awarded to the City of Duluth in the dollar amount of $384,091. As well as a multimodal trail center to the City of Silver Bay in the dollar amount of $515,909. Your county has an upcoming funding project, the Overstar Trail segment that's coming up in fiscal year 2024 in the dollar amount of $300,000. I just want to bring that to the forefront of your mind. Good work. Your wonderful county engineer has been a pleasure to work with. As well as the Transportation Alternatives Program, ARDC also does a ton of transportation planning, and it also serves Pine County. So I just want to give you an update on what is coming up in my work plan for 2023. I will be working on community transportation plans in the city of Cloquet, Aiken, and Fond du Lac. We'll be working on regional scenic byway development in the Duluth area for Skyline Parkway, Edge of the Wilderness Corridor Management Plan, North Shore Scenic Drive, the Mille Lacs Scenic Byway General Assistance, that's underway, Superior National Forest Byway, which is a Silver Bay Trailhead, and Avenue of Pines Trail and Trailhead. We also assist with paved trail development in Gitchigami Trail Association, as well as the Ely Multimodal Trailhead, that's the Mesabi Trail, and the Nashwauk Multimodal Trailhead, Mesabi Trail, and other activities as identified. And if you have any project ideas or questions, you can push them to Mark, who can work with me to get them answered for you. I'm happy to answer any questions you have now. Otherwise, it was just a.
I got one.
Let's hear it. Yes.
We've got the Munger Trail that stops in Hinkley.
That's right.
And they've got a name for that next section called Jim Mayfield Start.
That's right.
We're doing some work around Pine City area, some county trails. But we'd really like, I'd love to be able, before I kick off, to ride that thing all the way from White Bear Lake to Duluth.
That'd be incredible.
Without having to ride the shoulder of the road for 32 miles or whatever it is.
Absolutely. Mark, I don't know if you want to speak to that. I can attempt to speak to that. Really, there is a lot of amazing trail connections coming up, and we should be able to ride all the way from Minneapolis up to Canada, quite frankly. And I think those projects are coming more and more every year as funding is available. You're certainly not the only stakeholder who wants to see that. I think each of us here would love to ride with you, in fact. So yeah, absolutely. And we can definitely work on that.
I was just gonna say, we're not members of the Arrowhead Regional Development Commission, so we're kind of caught in between Mndot districts and things. So it's a little confusing, but they do work on our behalf as far as federal money and some of those other projects. And they've been really helpful. So if you're confused, that's, we're part of the East Central Regional Development Commission. It's by state law. And so, we're just kind of caught in the middle there on that. Just like Aiken is in Mndot District 3, but they get their federal funding in Mndot District. We try to be nice to them, they're on there. So some of those boundaries, I don't know if we'll ever make those changes, but it is hard to.
I think we're confusing for Mark understands it better than I do, but I mean, it's, I see developments that could happen. And I've ridden those trails up by Two Harbors and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
we should be having the same.
Exactly. And some of those are years in the making, and they just did a ribbon cutting last week for another segment. You know, it does take a lot of time and coordination and then monies too.
Yep.
But you are pretty fortunate to be part of the great, our ATP, and then also have access to other, fundings throughout. So good projects. And even though, ERDC doesn't specifically serve Pine County, we're always happy to answer questions and help get you, the answers that you need in contact with the people you need to see.
Thank you. Thanks for
Communication.
Of course.
Yeah, you guys have been awesome to work with.
Likewise, yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Is that it from the Mndot ARDC side? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
We appreciate the partnership we have with you. Lower St. Croix, one watershed, one plan, work plan. This is something that's been in the works for quite some time. But Caleb will give us the overview, and it's something that I sit on that board, and I think it's good work. I mean, and some of it, you guys on the Snake River, you've had the Snake River watershed, but now as you go to one plan, one watershed, we're starting to see projects already happen on the Lower St. Croix because of the way the funding comes our way. So,
Mr. Chair.
yeah.
Can I have a quick question?
Yeah.
How did you guys end up? Is it a joint powers agreement or
Well,
how did you end up? Because it's always floating.
I think eventually we'll get to a joint powers agreement, but we have a lot of partners in that organization that are not used to joint powers. And so some of the county commissioners had to swallow their pride. Maybe if it works, let's just make this thing work. And so part of making it work is to have a work plan. That gets approved, and then every time they gotta buy a new shovel, they don't have to go back to 5 county boards and get it.
Exactly.
We approve the work plan, they do the work within the confines of that work plan.
Okay.
And they're legally okay to do that, but go ahead, Caleb.
Sorry, Caleb.
Well, it's interesting, and there's a lot of different ways to set it up, and it's a real head scratcher on how to set it up in a way that's going to operate most efficiently. Just understanding how much kind of bureaucracy there can be. And I'm Caleb Anderson, the Land and Resources Manager in the Planning and Zoning Office. And the One Watershed, One Plan is a 10-year plan. And part of that, the agreement to receive those state dollars is you have to have a biannual work plan as well as an annual work plan, which isn't my favorite thing, that we do biannual and annual, but that's what we're here for. Why I'm here today is the second half of that first biennial work plan. It's in many ways a regurgitation of what was already approved by the county board in the biennial work plan. And the plan was put in your packet. It's not the most digestible document you'll have before you, but so I didn't put it together. But but a lot of the work that's begun with the Lower St. Croix is supported to continue in this annual work plan. So as Steve was saying, the Soil and Water did a cattle exclusion from a lake under this funding source. They've got a new request for a wetland restoration. We've been doing some hydrology investigation. So we've been doing some new cool projects by this additional funding source. So this annual work plan will allow that to kind of keep moving. So the action requested this morning is a simple approval of that 2022-2023 annual work plan. If you have any questions for me, I'd entertain them.
Anybody?
So one quick question, if you do it the way, this way, we have to approve it essentially every year. the plan, if you do it the way that we were talking about going with Snake River Watershed, that they just handle it. It doesn't have to come back to the county board.
Right. It'd be more, most of us sit on some joint powers board. The library, the landfill, all these other boards. And we go there as a representative of Pine County and we vote our conscience on something we think we could defend at our board. But this it's to me, it's just a little more cumbersome, but it's all right. It's all right. We're still getting projects done. And that was my concern in the beginning, that it would delay and hold up projects. And so all the Caleb's in the watershed have got together, and it might not be what they think is the best governing structure, but we were put together in this group, and we're making it work. It'll work. Anything can work.
I think one of the differences in the lower St. Croix is that there are watershed districts, which is a governmental jurisdiction, which we don't have in the other watersheds. And some of those folks are the ones who are vocally opposed to being a joint powers entity, where it's looked at as another layer of government, where they have soil and water district, conservation district like us do, but also watershed districts. And it just seems like more layers to them, where that's different. We don't have that in our area.
So one thing, I got a question. So when I sat on Snake River Watershed Management Board, we, like, throughout the year, people would come to us for projects and we'd approve them or not approve them. So essentially this 1-year work plan, if you're not on that list, let's just say, throughout the summer, someone new comes through, that couldn't get done this year. It'd have to go like on next year's work plan, correct? Or not?
Right.
Okay.
But it's not project specific. So like agricultural best management practices in the Rock Creek sub watershed is on the list. And that's going to cover most of our area. And that's most of the potential projects we would do.
Okay.
So, but similarly in Snake, we'll want to make sure that the projects that we're looking at for this year and the next year are positioned to be funded.
So we need a motion on this.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
A motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So is there going to be a shared cost on some of this? Is this all going to be grant dollars? Are we going to have, is there going to be a 20,
There will not be a cost to the Pine County Board of Commissioners. Because it's a 2-year grant to fund the whole work plan. That's housed through the Chisago SWCD, and they're the fiscal agent, and they're managing a grant match over the total, which is like 1.2 million per year or something like that.
thank you.
Any other questions? Anyway, no other questions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Caleb, before you sit down, just one thing that I think has come through from the lower St. Croix conversations is that we've done projects forever through soil and water and through other functions, but we never really pointed to the source of the problem. And so there's some research and some of what Pine County's SWCD is doing is taking all the inlets to Rock Lake, and they're testing the quality of water going into the lake, testing the quality of water going out of the lake. It's kind of a confined little sub-watershed. And so I think for once we would be able to somehow say, the pollution to that lake is coming from X.
Mhm.
It's not what we really thought it was. Maybe it is what we thought it was. But I think there could be some potential pretty cool outcomes that other people could duplicate.
Good.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Commissioner updates, Pine County TAC. This is where we meet. with their
Mr.
own-
Chair,
Yes.
did we
yes,
have an addition 5A, the resolution 2022-35?
Yes, we do.
And I can briefly explain that if you'd like.
Go ahead.
So back in February at the insurance committee meeting, you might recall there was discussion that our VIBA trust is administered through the Minnesota Healthcare Consortium, and they were bought out, and then we're going to no longer administer the VIBAs. And so then we began a process to maintain all of our healthcare savings accounts under one vendor. And so now we are in the process of making that move. And this resolution is just the final authorization to do that or to complete those moves.
So everybody understand that? Yep. All right, we need a motion for that resolution.
That, Mr. Chair, Ludwig.
And I'll second it.
Motion by Ludwig, seconded by Lovegren. Any discussion?
Just a reminder that, is it like a 1 week period or a 2 week period where you're not going to be able to access those dollars while they're doing the trade or the transfer? I think it's a 2 week period that you're not going to be able to access that money.
Yeah, that was my only question too, if we can answer both. Dave, there was gonna be a transition time when they rolled it over. What's that lag time? Do we know that?
There is a blackout period, and I think I can tell you what that is if I have just a moment.
Yeah, I think they said a week or something originally. I don't know, that's possible.
I know, I think that they were saying that they thought they could do it in shorter, but Justin was saying no.
Yeah, and I may not find that as quickly as I thought, but it will be in September. And so we've got some time to get communication out on that. And we have an insurance committee meeting coming up where I know Justin will provide a full update on the transition plan, and then we can communicate that to employees.
Where she's gone. Oh, Dave, so I just refreshing my memory. Let's just say something happened and somebody incurred cost and it was in that, they would still honor the expense, wouldn't they? Even if
Yes.
they don't. So,
Yeah, this is just dealing with the reimbursement. And
Yeah,
so
right.
there'll be
Yeah.
on one day you submit it to company A, and
Yeah.
then there's a deadline, and then in a week or 10 days, whatever the period is, you'll submit it to the new company. But it won't matter when the expense was incurred, as long as it's a
Exactly.
legitimate expense, it will get paid.
because it's the same pool of money, it's just going to a
Yep.
different. So, yeah, just so people understand that they'll be taken care of. That's all.
And the nice thing about Matrix is it's in Minnesota. We're,
Right.
yeah, that's nice.
And I just figured out the further thing.
It won't be way different.
I got the card finally and everything. Did we vote on that?
No.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Soil and Water District.
Yeah, I missed the meeting. I have the minutes. Went over them. Everything was pretty much business as usual. There's something with Juneteenth that I think we should just maybe leave. Sounds like they're working something out with HR and Dave probably. Everything else looks business as usual.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I was in a meeting with a bunch of people from AMC yesterday, and Juneteenth was brought up. And it was interesting because the House does not recognize Juneteenth, but the Senate does. So, I mean, it's just really kind of a goofy holiday with the people that are taking that time for Juneteenth and the people that are not. I think they said there's only a couple counties right now that are doing anything with that, because it's a negotiable item, obviously. But I thought that was interesting that the representatives are split. You know, some are acknowledging it and some aren't yet. So just,
And some states have adopted it. I
yeah,
think 18 or 38 states
yeah.
had done it way a long time ago.
Yeah, it's just, I just thought that was interesting that
Yeah.
it's that big of a split. So,
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
on that point, in our last round of negotiations on our labor agreements, there were requests to make that a county holiday, and the county's position at the time was to follow the state. And so if the state made it a holiday, then it would automatically become a county holiday because we follow the state holidays. And so that's where the county, last it was discussed, that's where it was.
Thanks. Law Library.
Yeah, we had a meeting. It was pretty quick. We just passed some bills and just a little bit of information. So it was quick and easy.
Central Minnesota Jobs and Training. I think we all know right now, unemployment numbers are at a historic low. That's, I don't know, you can count numbers however you want, but
Yeah.
the amount of people that are available to work are as low as they've ever been. Depending on what chart you read, 2.6%. I remember, I think I was in high school when my economics teacher told us that about 3.5% was full employment. So we're beyond full employment. But anyway, the people that aren't working are the people that are the very hardest to get trained to work. And that's always that number is, there's always been that number. They just, that's what they're working on now. East Central Solid Waste Commission. We are, there's some, first time I heard some of my colleagues actually talk about, how high is that hill going to get? And how many more holes can we dig on this piece of property? And so I think there might be some changes coming as far as what we allow in the landfill. Because lately, due to costs to contractors, it's actually been cheaper for them to do a demo and pay the garbage bill than to put it in, haul it further to get it to a construction landfill. Two problems exist. It doesn't work. Landfills were not designed for demo, and we're going to run out of airspace. And so we got to be smarter.
How much time do you think you have left on that piece of property? And
We'll have a better idea when we get the next cell approved, which we're working on right now to get MPCA approval for another cell.
And with the average cell gets you 10, but it doesn't anymore, right?
Yeah. And so we got 30, 50, 60 years, 30, which isn't a long time.
No.
Because where is the next one going to go?
That's, how soon do you have to start shopping and finding them? Because that takes a long time.
Well, we tried to put a demo landfill in Pine County, and that didn't work so well for the person that wanted to do it. So
is that an education thing?
It's partly an education thing. It's partly, nobody wants the traffic.
Yeah.
Nobody wants the smell. Nobody wants, in the case of a demo pit, it's more traffic than anything.
Yeah.
And everybody's concerned about what gets thrown in that dumpster besides demo. You know. Now at least, if you were gonna start a construction demo landfill, now it would have to be lined, where the old ones were grandfathered in as on line, which eases some of the concerns that people have, but not all.
I think that should go to our economic development, because when you're gonna have that kind of, if you want to have building and you're gonna have demo. So that should be a little sidebar, as you're gonna need a site within reach for a bunch of cities in the county to make,
Well, the problem, Matt, is the way transportation is now. And if you're if you're hauling around 30-yard dumpsters, and that's what they use a lot on demo.
Yeah.
To tell somebody you got to drive 50 miles down the road to dump that,
Yeah.
and there's a transfer station 10 miles down the road, it's like, well, I can do the math real quick.
oh, sure.
And I'm gonna dump it here. I'll pay the extra dumping charge. But we'll figure it out. Kind of interesting. East Central Library.
They've been trying to figure out what to do with some money, and they were gonna do that over hours or the extended hours of Hinkley, where you could just go in and check into the library without anybody working there. And Hinkley's looking at changes. So what they're gonna do is put a pickup box for books at Graham in their convention center. And so it'll be kind of like a post office box. So that was the big thing. The other thing was, last month we talked about all the people that came to protest the book that was at the library. Well, this month, we had people that came to protest taking that book out of the library. And so what it came down to, we had created an ad hoc committee a month ago, and this month it was, one of the people on the board is an attorney, and she was the chair of this ad hoc committee. And she said, when you read what your recommendations or your requirements are to do something, it's you go to the person who buys the materials and puts them on the library and talk to them and tell them your concern. And if they don't agree with you, then you go to the library director. And if she doesn't agree with you, then you put it on the agenda and you talk to the board. And nothing was ever put on the agenda and talked to the board. They followed the first two steps. But they, instead, there were like 50 people that came to talk instead. And that person that brought up this to the board or to the library did not attend. So everything is put on hold. I guess if there's a lot of litigations going right now about that book where people are, if you make a rash decision, and we had the ad hoc committee and that made a decision, but this procedure wasn't followed, we'd be opening ourselves up for a lawsuit. So everything is just on hold to see what happens from here.
So where's the books now, or book?
They're all checked out right now.
Anywhere.
But they will be back on the shelves where they had been. We can't make any changes to that. So.
And that's graphic. It's a graphic book.
Yeah, it's pretty graphic. Yeah.
Oh,
Is book circulation up? Down?
For all books?
Of all books.
I think that they are, and they, now that they've got the ebooks and stuff too, I think the library is heavily used.
A friend of mine this morning just said he's got 3 books on order, and they've been on order for several weeks.
Yeah. There's a lot more people staying home, and, reading is such a great gift that we have to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Board of Equalization. Anybody got any comments on that?
Sorry again, I was late.
I think our staff did a great job handling it, most of the stuff.
I do too, and I understand the concern people have or had when that did come, but I think our staff is to be commended for keeping their cool and doing the work they have to do. NACO Telecom Technology.
We there's a lot of stuff going on about broadband, and that's the main conversation. And they're doing resolutions now that are going to be going to the NACO convention. So I've been working with Terrell and with CMS to talk about having something about the RDOF funds. And if there's something that we can do with those RDOF funds other than them holding on to that money, if we can get that money here. So that's kind of in the works. I'm trying to figure out how to word other resolutions to get that phased in there. So yeah, it was a lot of talk about what to do for resolutions that are coming up next month.
Okay. And on that same note, Terry, maybe we should talk about Pine County issued a grant program for broadband, small grants that local providers could apply for. We offered up 250,000 of the money that we have set aside for broadband. And we, I believe, is it 6 applications that we have received? And so we will be, Terry and I and Leslie are on the subcommittee that's going to try to sort through that and come. Our hope is to have a recommendation for you by the second meeting in July. So we.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If you wanted the count, we have 11 requests from 5 different companies. So some companies did put in multiple requests.
I was close. Thanks, David. I have not read through them yet. I am, Leslie is printing them off for Terry and I, and we will, we'll start reading through them and try to make sense of it all. But I'm so happy that we have 5 providers that have said to Pine County, we are ready and willing to do a project for you, which is
better than we're getting on other bids for buildings and stuff, right?
yeah, we can't get 2 people to bid on building a building. So anyway, that is good news. SHAC meeting.
Jan Malcolm was there. She's the Department of Health Administrator. And it was interesting. She said that was the first time that she was in the building for 2.5 years. Or in that Department of Health room for 2.5 years. That's how long that they've been shut down and working from home. So I'm pretty proud of us. I mean, that spoke volumes. They were talking about water systems. 75% of Minnesota water is in wells. And so they're trying to figure out the well systems. 1.2 million is of what the state has is going to be going to private mills, from 1 million to 4.4 for private well owners for education. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Wait, no. Is that because I've had people ask me about that? What about the well that used to be on the old so-and-so's place?
Right.
Did that ever get closed, or did they just plow over top of it? Is that what this is for?
I'm not real sure what exactly. I think a lot of it's just for testing to make sure that people have clean water. But that's something that was brought up on the Snake River Watershed too, was getting people to close those wells.
Yeah, because that is a direct injection into the aquifer that I might be pulling my water out of.
Right.
Half a mile away.
There's a process for our SWCD to seal all those wells, and that's a good.
Is that a current? We should, we should probably.
That's still going. Is that a current program?
Yep. You can still do that, right?
One of the other things they're trying to do is get an inventory of them.
Right, and people are scared to raise their hand and say, I got an abandoned well.
Well, how many people don't even know that they have one because they bought the property and it's all been covered up.
And it wasn't ever in the day. Now, if you have a well drilled, it gets recorded. And so everybody knows there's a well there, but 75 years ago, they just dug a well.
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
They're going to be having, they met in person last time and I didn't go down there because it was down in St. Paul, but they're going to have a full meeting in October that's going to be in St. Cloud for 2 days. So that's the first time that SHAC will be really meeting in person. So. That's it.
All right. Before we leave, I think we should just all pause and think of Lori and her family, the death of her son. I can't imagine what they're going through. So it's a tragedy for them, for anybody, but just remember her in your thoughts and prayers.
Mr. Chair. Are you gonna adjourn? Over here. So just another, I'm gonna throw out there is for all of us, our budget's coming. You know, and it sneaks up on us and sneaks up on me. That's why I say, so let's just start thinking. That's all I want to say. It's a weird year.
I thank you for that, Matt, because I have been thinking as I've been running my sawmill and doing one, cutting buckthorn or whatever, I keep thinking, you know, I might have told David this might be one of our toughest budget years that we've had because costs have gone up. We don't have our heads stuck in the sand and not know that, but I don't know that just raising our levy willy-nilly is the thing to do because I think people are
Inflation's
probably hurting worse now than they were in the middle of the pandemic. So
but good to think.
Keep rolling that around in your head so we can have some fruitful meetings as we move forward. Because it comes fast. We got to have a preliminary budget by September, middle of September.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact date. David shaking his head.
20 something
in September.
So we typically have our first budget meeting in late July. And the auditor gives kind of the overview of how the world stands. And then from there, it gets busy real quick in August to get a preliminary budget. And the preliminary levy is what needs to be done by the end of September. And you can always finesse the budget, but you have to set the preliminary levy by sometime near the end of September.
Any other business? Anything, Jeff? You guys have been busy, I know. Yeah. All right, no other business. I'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Hey, Jeff. Okay, you go first.